Hi, I'm Ken. Thanks for watching Marshall Trains. Today we're going to check out the progress on my layout. But before we do, I'd just like to say please subscribe if you enjoy what you're watching, and don't forget to click that little bell so you get notified every time I drop a new video. Thanks, let's get started. Right now we're looking at the west side of my layout. The old layout, which I tore down probably early October of last year, 2018, stretched from that wooden beam just on the left side of your screen to roughly about a foot away from the back wall. It was a 12 by 12 layout, simple 4 by 8 sheets plywood, 36 inches high roughly, with a lift bridge that would allow me to get into the center. It was always meant as a temporary layout as I figured out exactly what I wanted to do. And while I haven't exactly figured out exactly what I wanted to do, I knew that I wanted to get bigger. So that's when I began the expansion. It was middle of October to early November. I'm going to swing the camera around to look at the east side of the layout so we can get a rough idea of how large the layout is. As I scroll around here, I'll tell you that the new layout is roughly 44 feet long, 12 feet on the side that we just left, and 9 feet on the side that we just got to. The bench work is roughly 2 feet wide all the way around, with plans to bump it out here and there as necessary to accommodate any kind of industries or town that I want to add. The track that I use is mostly Atlas O 3-rail, although there is a mix of also Gargraves and Ross. The bluish white panels that you might see depending on the lighting that you're looking in are actually blue, very light blue. They are, for the most part, 2 feet by 4 feet wide, except for the corners, which are curved. Those are 4 feet by 4 feet pieces. They're something called handy panels by the local supply place that I bought them at. They're 1/8 inch thick, and by being that thin, they have a little bit of flex to them, which allowed me to get into the corners and have them curved the way that I do. Let's jump in and get a close shot of how that looks. So we're in closer now, but not too close because otherwise all you would see is just blue background. You'll notice that the curve of my track does not mirror the curve of the board. I did this on purpose because I wanted to minimize the space loss by curving the board, and I wanted to be able to put a little bit of scenery in between there just for aesthetics. I'll put in a couple of still shots of this area before I got the boards up so you can see how I did it. What I did was I took basic pine 1x4 pieces and I glued those to the cement. Then I put the panels up there using 5/8 inch brad nails. That way if I need to, I can tear them down if this doesn't work out the way that I hope it to. I still have to mud and tape these and smooth it all out, but for now they're up, and it's better than looking at the concrete back. As you see in this first shot, I have the side panels up first. This allowed me to wedge in the corner piece and leave my hands free in order to fasten it. It's pretty simple in the end, but I was pretty nervous going in. If I haven't mentioned it, this is a 3-rail O-scale layout. I chose O-scale for a number of reasons, which I'll talk about some other time. But I do like the size and the ability that it gives you in order to have greater detail in the models. It's very nice. Most guys that run this scale, and actually a lot of scales, actually run their layouts with a higher bench work. I chose 36 inches because it just felt more comfortable at the time that I was building it. My son was quite a few years younger when I started then, and I wanted to make sure that he could easily see everything and work on it with me. And I just kind of stuck with that theme going forward. What we're looking at is an Mth bridge. It's a 2-track bridge. I've mounted it so that it lifts up to give me easy access into the layout. And it's also functional in that it actually spans a real space instead of just a couple of posts and a fake river underneath it. Let's talk about the construction of how I put this together. So the first thing that I did, I actually built it all together first. It was all connected. The 2x4s were connected. I cut them out later. Right here you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So I had it span across here originally, and after I got the bridge mounted, that's when I cut them out. I wanted to make sure that it was sturdy. I'll talk about the supports of how I make sure that it doesn't move here in a second. If we come over here and zoom in on the hinge, the key thing that you have to keep in mind if you're going to do something like this is that your hinge point has to be higher than the track. Otherwise, your track will bind when you lift the bridge. So all I did was put a couple of 3/4 inch blocks of plywood, and these are standard hinges that you can find at any home center that I've got mounted to the bridge. I may do something where it becomes a lift-out bridge in the future, but for now it's hinged. Let's move and take another angle and talk about how it's supported so that it actually can work as a real functional bridge. So here I've got the bridge lifted up, and we see the support that's under the bridge. This is a 3/4 inch piece of plywood that I've slotted so that I can adjust the height so that it properly supports the bridge. And then I've got some lag screws that hold it in. I've got that on both sides in order to make sure that it actually can hold the weight of anything that would go over the top of it. The bridge itself would break before these supports would. The other thing that I'm doing is I need to run power to both sides of the bridge. So I've run wire underneath. This panel isn't screwed down at all right now, but I wanted to make sure that I have easy access. I've got grooves cut in so I can run the wires underneath the panel. I'll just lift it up. That way, while I'm still under construction, it's easy to access, but I'll put that down securely later. This does two pieces for me. First of all, it allows me to run the wiring from one end to the other, but also, just as important, is it allows me to secure this gap in the layout so that the table doesn't move. And I'm more than interested to hear how you might have done it yourself. I know that many people do it in different ways. Some people just have it lift out with wiring that has contact points on either end of the bridge. They're all interesting to me, but as I was doing it, this is what made sense to me. As I was building the layout, my cars, my engines, all my rolling stock just were all over the place, all over the basement. It was really difficult to work. I had to move things just to be able to work all the time. So as I got to the point where I had the bench work up, I decided it was time to build some display shelves. I used select pine 1x4s to build them. I originally used 1/8 inch thick plywood as the back, but that became a problem for supply. So I switched to the handy panels, which work just as well. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the left side, the east side of the layout, and another 3 on the right-hand west side of the layout. In terms of additional progress, it's really been about 3 or 4 months since I started this redesign, so I'm really in the early stages of it. I've got a few buildings that I had from my original layout, the 12x12. Obviously, that'll be added to in the future, as well as scenery. The plan is kind of to make this like a scenic railroad, a small town that serves a scenic railroad kind of thing. I do have some freight stock, as well as a nice Norfolk Southern 911 first responders engine. But I've discovered over the past few years what I really love are the passenger trains, particularly the passenger trains prior to Amtrak taking over in 1971 for the rail service in the United States. So I've begun to collect those. If you are interested in those, I've been doing a series of videos on those recently. I don't have a lot of engines to go with those, really any engines to go with those other than my Lionel UP Challenger. That's what I usually run with the passenger cars. But, sometime in the future, it's just easier budget-wise to get passenger cars than it is the steam engines. As you all know, they're quite a bit more expensive. Just a couple more notes before we finish up this update. Right now I have one loop running. I intend to add a second main line, obviously connect them, and then add a reversing loop behind this post right here. And with a single track bridge that'll lift up just like this one does so that I can access that area easily. Finally, let's run some trains. You're going to see the Union Pacific Challenger pulling the Powhatan Arrow, or Powhatan Arrow. Not sure how to pronounce it. One day I'll find out. If you know, leave a comment. Thanks.